Hello and welcome to another edition of the FLABOTA podcast hosted by the Fort Lauderdale Chapter of FLABOTA. I'm President Jeff Adelman, and today we have a really important and timely topic to discuss in light of hurricane season, what we're in the midst of right now, seeing what's going on in other parts of the country, an email alert system for the courts. Today, we have two guests who have generously given us their time. Chief Judge Jack Tudor from the 17th Circuit, and we also have Trial Court Administrator Joseph D'Amico, who's been helping with getting the email alert system up and running in Broward County. Thank you so much for being with us, gentlemen.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff.
All right.
Good to be here.
Well, my first question is to Mr. D'Amico. Something like this, an email alert system, can you explain why this is important?
Well, it's important in this day and age, like you mentioned in your introductory remarks, Jeff, with the hurricanes that are always out there during this type of season, the wildfires out west. It allows us to timely send notification to not only our staff, but individuals, litigants, and other attorneys as to courthouse operations. And it's not only an email alert system. Our system allows us to send unified messages via email, but also to send them via mobile text message. So it also captures those individuals who might not have an email address. In addition to that, we are able to send voice recorded messages as well, so similar to a robocall that you might receive.
All right, when I heard that Broward County was doing this, I was thinking about kind of the Broward County school system and how they do that. And if they could do it for the schools, why not the courts? Judge Tudor, before this system was in place, when there were court closures, whether it be for a storm or there was something going on inside a courtroom or in the courthouse, how would you get the word out?
Yeah, I can't remember how long we've had the advent of email, but I think we've probably had it at least since I've been chief judge the last 20 years. So almost everything was exclusively internal, and it was all via email. So this includes the stakeholders in the courthouse, the clerk's office, public defender, state attorney, and the sheriff's office. So we primarily have communicated by email, and as the technology got better and better, we have a way to communicate internally over our phone system, like a public service announcement. We don't use that very often. Primarily, we communicate on these kinds of emergencies over email and text messages. We do have an emergency alert system that we also communicate over from time to time. So it's been some form of electronic communication. There are just so many people that we have to get this message out to in such a short window of time that it's primarily the best way we communicate with the folks inside the courthouse. And then we rely heavily on the news media to also publish communications and alerts when we're closed or we have emergencies.
Right. And I remember before I got my first alert, I would be checking the news and trying to see if anything was out there. But this is actually even quicker, which, is pretty effective.
Well, there's I think the problem exists with the media is sometimes they don't a lot of times we wait on to see what the school system does before we make final decisions, because there's so many people inside the courthouse with kids. If we don't close, most of the courthouse is going to be closed anyway, because people are going to have to stay home with their kids, because as you know, most of the time, these are pretty quick notices. We don't get a week to decide we're going to close next Thursday. We usually decide a day or so before we close. So the news media is very reliable, but sometimes we can't get those broadcasts out till late in the evening and early in the morning, the next morning, when we make these decisions.
Well, Mr. D'Amico, let me ask you this. How can people, at least in Broward County, sign up for this service, attorneys and the public too, if they want to receive these messages?
Yeah, we have a link on our homepage of our website, www.17th.flcourts.org. About halfway down the left-hand side of our homepage, there's a link, and it'll take individuals to a fillable form. They'll first need to designate whether they're a non-attorney, a member of the public, an attorney, or a member of the media. And the reason why that's important, Jeff, is that we're able to isolate different groups in the system. So if we only need to send a message to internal users, we can set up the groups that way so that we don't bother individuals who are outside of our organization with something that is not pertinent to them. We also ask for demographic information, first and last name, a Florida bar number if you're an attorney, and an email address or mobile phone number where you're able to receive text messages or both. It's also important when you visit the form, you'll see at the top there's a disclaimer. It's important for individuals to know that their information that they give to us might be subject to disclosure in response to a public records request. Also advises individuals that if they ever want to be removed from the list, they have to actively send us an email. And that email address is e-alert@17th.flcourts.org.
Well, thank you for that. Now, how difficult was this system to implement for the Broward County circuit? Obviously, I think that other people throughout the state are going to be listening to this, so I'm sure they're curious how difficult it was for you to put it together.
Well, the system that we use, it's called the ReadyOp. We've had it since, I want to say, roughly 2012 or 2013. We've primarily used it, like Chief Judge Tudor had mentioned, just for internal purposes. Our courthouse staff, our judges, other executive level individuals from BSO, the clerk's office, state attorney, and public defender. I can't speak for how we obtained the program at that particular time, but because we had the infrastructure already, it was extremely easy to expand it to include members of the public, attorneys like yourself, and other individuals who want to get this information, or individuals who we need to get this information to.
So, Jeff, I think probably this is a result of county government. The county's always had some alert system, and we use their phone system and equipment, or they provide it to us. So my suspicion is this goes all the way back to decades, probably, with hurricanes and notifications to government officials.
And it was, once you made the decision, Judge Tudor, to do that, it was able to get up and running relatively quickly. What types of alerts have you sent out using that system so far? I mean, I know I've received a few, but for those who have not, what type of alerts have you taken upon yourself to send out?
Well, I would just say in general, anything that pertains to the closure of the courthouse. And as I said before, I wish we had the luxury of being able to pontificate and make these decisions days in advance, but reality is that they're only made hours in advance. Even though you may wake up one day and it's a beautiful sunshiny day, the day before the hurricane was bearing down on us and we had to make decisions based on the weather at that time. But we've had to use this just in recent venture. Somebody cut a cable and turned the electricity off to the courthouse a year or so ago. Maybe it was before COVID. I get mixed up between pre-COVID and post-COVID, probably pre-COVID. Of course, we had that flood just recently where we had to close the courthouse. We all went home and it was a rainstorm, and the next morning we all woke up and the whole county was flooded. So it mostly has been used for hurricane purposes or storm purposes. Folks may not realize, but once the county starts getting their emergency preparation folks in order, we're on their lifeline communication, so to speak. So we know everything they know, and that's how we're able to kind of make these decisions. It has generally been the case that when the school board closes their schools, we close the courts. Now, there was an exception to that during the flood. We did open up when the county school system was closed, but we try to track what the school system's doing when we make these decisions, because, as I said before, This affects so many people's lives, and you can't make these decisions, the morning of the event. It's no good with people driving in and having them to turn around and have to go home. So this is a great system. There's nobody happier about this system than me, because when this stuff starts, the emails and the phone calls, go on for several hours before people realize we're either open or we're closed.
And Judge Tudor, when this whole program was implemented, I know the Fort Lauderdale chapter, FLABOTA, Mitch Chester, Angie Castronovo contacted you, the president of Fort Lauderdale FLABOTA. I know Judge Levinson was involved as well. Who were some of the other individuals that helped you out to get this program started?
Well, the way it kind of trickles down is if I say it's a good idea and we approve it, then it usually goes to Joe. And then from Joe, our judicial information system, or people over there tasked with making sure the system stays current and adds the new names of people. I don't know why we didn't think of this earlier, or ask about this earlier. There's no difficulty for us adding thousands of people to the system. We can also do blast emails. Emails sometimes during a storm are not the best kind of communication, but we have somewhere north of 40,000 people registered through our court system, through CMS, and how people obtain orders and schedule cases. So we could do a blast email system, but it usually, because it's so bulky, we do it late in the evening when the system isn't being used very much. So we have many ways to do this. The other part of this, when this got started, was you may remember we had a lot of episodes in government buildings of active shooters. So we did active shooter drills, and we used this ReadyOp system to be able to immediately communicate with stakeholders in the building to say, for instance, the 5th floor is closed or the 8th floor is closed, not only in email, but the PA system that we have the capability of using. The sheriff also has a system called Safer Alert that people can register for, and they will alert you if, for instance, downtown is closed because there's a active shooter somewhere, or the streets are closed with some immediate emergency. So there's lots of ways we can try to communicate this. But as you know, there's almost 2 million people in the county, and communicating with large swaths of not only lawyers, but the public, it's difficult to get that kind of communication out. And this is one of the best systems I think we have available to be able to make those communications.
Well, I think having the texting is vital because, well, in my experience, people don't respond to emails these days as much as they used to in terms of clients and all that. And when I text them, I get a message like that. So people check their, immediate alerts on their phones. So I think that it's really, really very helpful. Well, Mr. D'Amico, let me ask you one last question here. For those who are listening, watching, and want to implement a system like this in their circuit, how can they get in touch with you if they have any questions?
I'm more than happy to make myself available for a Zoom call or a phone call. My contact information is 954-831-7741. Like I said, I'm more than happy to assist any other circuit or any other agency that's looking to try to do the same thing we're doing. Because like I said, I think it's very important, especially where we live geographically and the types of storms that we see during the summer months and into the fall as well.
Well, even taking it out of Florida, looking what's going on in Maui right now, or across the nation, there's always going to be some type of natural disaster, and people need to be alerted very quickly about what's going on. So I think that this is something not just for Florida, but I think that throughout the nation, if they don't have a system like this, I think, Broward County is once again, leading in this. So that's a credit to the 17th Circuit. So we really appreciate you guys taking the time with us today. Is there anything else that either of you want to add that I haven't that I haven't asked you about the system that you want to get out to the public?
Well, the other thing I would say when you mentioned text alerts, some people are reluctant to give their phone number for text alerts, but will for email. If the power goes down, almost uniformly, the cell towers continue to work, or they get them up in short order. So it may be, as you said earlier, it could be days or more in some areas where the power is down and you're not able to communicate over email. So being able to communicate through text, I think, is a very important thing to the lawyers. And I don't think cell phone numbers are so confidential these days. Seems like we share them with everyone anymore. So I think using your cell phone number as a backup to email is a very important thing. And I guess lastly, I want to say, which I should have said earlier, was the 17th just wants to continue to thank ABOTA, you, Jeff, and Mitch, and Miles, and all the folks who were involved with ABOTA for the support to the court system and getting out information like this throughout the legal land of not only the lawyers, but the folks you represent. So on behalf of the entire circuit, we thank you all for the many good things you all do for the legal community.
Well, I really appreciate you saying that, and we're all working together to make sure it's good for everybody in the county and the state, trying to be as efficient as possible. I think that's in everybody's best interest, and we all are on the same team with regards to that. Well, again, I can't thank you both enough for your time. This is Chief Judge Jack Tudor and Joseph D'Amico from the 17th Judicial Circuit. I want to remind everybody that this podcast has been edited and produced by Trilogy Trial Consultants. Trilogy is FLABOTA's preferred jury research, litigation support, and trial presentation firm. Check them out online at trilogytrial.com or call 813-995-8880. Until next time, I'm Jeff Edelman. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you, Jeff. Have a good weekend.
Thank you, Jeff.